Hi guys! Welcome back to the Unraveling the World podcast.
Before we get into today's episode, let's hear from our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain it to you really quickly. To start off, it's 100% free, and there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it could be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more platforms. In fact, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. If you're interested, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
So for this week's episode, we wanted to talk about the dowry system. So dowry has been going on in India and quite a few other places for a while now. So we wanted to utilize this week's episode to shine some light on this issue. So if anyone wanted to continue.
Right, so dowry is basically when the bride's family, especially this happens in India, when the bride's family gives money to her husband and like a big amount, like a huge amount. It's not like $5-10, like a big amount of money. It can be up to $45,000, $10,000. It depends on the social class, but this is obvious. Dowry is a horrible thing, and it's horrible because it gives men unnecessary control. It makes it so that the man basically owns the woman. So it's and it also happens because it's part of the reason in India that daughters are not valued as much as the sons. And again, I said this happens to all social classes, and or happened to all social classes. And dowry. The thing with dowry is that there is a law in India. It's called the Dowry Prohibition Act of 1961, and basically this law it prohibits the practice of giving or taking of dowry by either husband or woman in a marriage, and it also punishes demanding and advertising dowry. So it if a dowry has been exchanged at a wedding, it imposes a duty on the person who's given dowry to give it to the bride.
Yeah. I also wanted to add on that dowry is not only in India, but it also happens in other countries as well. And it was passed down by the British Parliament because at the time British was taking over a lot of countries, right? It was in great power of a lot of countries across the globe. So it was able to pass down this kind of a law, and a lot of countries adapted to this, and it's still in our kind of country's regulations and laws. And while there is the Prohibition Act for dowry, a lot of people still do it. It's not like it doesn't happen. It still exists in a lot of countries, and people still do it, even though these acts have been passed.
Yeah, dowries were first. So as I said before, it's been going on for quite some time now, and it started off to help make women more independent. Dowries were once meant to help women achieve a degree of independence in a marriage, and basically the bride's family would give her some money, and this would help her have some control over her decisions and everything. And over time, this practice that happened for so long, it morphed into a system that encouraged the dominance of husbands, and they would dominate their wives because they'd, in a sense, have control over all the money because of how much money they had. And it stopped women from getting the things that they want, or not even that, getting basic life choices that every woman needs to have. It's she became dependent on the man in the marriage, and in a way it made them feel inferior, and obviously it sets women so far back because women are trying to fight for gender equality, and this puts us back so many years. And it's so tragic that it's happened for so long, and it honestly just still it still happens. So it's just really, really sad.
Yeah. Adding on to what Ishani just said, dowry doesn't always have to be money. It's also like, obviously money is such a huge aspect to it, but can also include like property, buildings, and that sort of stuff also plays a role into dowry.
Yeah, I
And
forgot about that.
yeah, but like looking up on it, like there are also punishments for dowry. Like, the people, like, you can get like imprisoned like for up to 6 months, or there can be like a fines for up to like 50,000 or 5,000 rupees. But I don't know. I feel like the regulations and laws aren't really set into place such that it's actually monitored properly, because
Yeah,
all
yeah,
this stuff goes
100%.
on and underneath the government. Like it just slips in. Like, I
It's
don't know.
Also, like, yeah,
yeah.
I wasn't even aware of this law till I did research on it. I know it
Yeah.
still happens for sure. It still happens to this day. And this, and I feel like in India itself, of course, this is something else we should discuss for another day, but in India itself, like, a lot of rules, and I mean a lot, to go, like, even when the police know about it, they don't, like, necessarily
anything.
charge them,
Yeah, like India, there's 1 billion people in India, and if you think that they're able to watch over every single one of those, you are like, think twice. Like this is still happening so many times in India, and people, like, how do you expect these things to not happen? Because people are getting kidnapped. There's so many worse things that are happening, and wait, I shouldn't have used worse, but there's so many other things that are happening, like dowries. Like, if you think about it, like, the place that the woman is in, like, she knows about the dowry that's gonna happen, and I'm I'm almost 100% sure that that is not a place she wants to be in, and she's not able to stand up for herself or report it, because, as Kavi said, like, the police, a lot of the times, they don't care. So, like, they just let them go, and so it's just becoming an ongoing issue that it's just escalating at this point, and there's no control over it, because a lot of this is, like, really prevalent in not as financially like, stable neighborhoods in India. Like, for example, like, it traps, if you think about it, like, traps poor people in debt, because, as Kabi said, it's not, dowry doesn't necessarily come in the form of money. So, and if you're poor, you're not going to have that much property or business or whatever it might be. So if the groom's family asks for money or property, you're not able to give that to them. So it, like, just gets worse. And not no actually, that's where I'm, like, confused about. Just, so if you're not able to give the groom's family money, or do they just decide that they don't want to marry the bride, or what happens after that?
Yeah. It causes a lot of impacts for a woman. And also, even after the dowry is given, and even after the wife has been married, and after all the payments are even done, like, there have been many cases in which, like, women have been, like, there's been abuse, violence, bride burning, wife murder. Like, these things are very common, because sometimes, I'm not saying this is the case for every single, like, relationship, okay? Like, I'm making that clear right now. I'm just saying that in some cases, especially like a while back, like, it was very common for people to take money and then inflict this sort of violence.
Oh yeah, it literally was. And if you think about it, like, people may have, like, a lot of sons, and that brings up another issue in India. Like, people really want sons, and so they will even go too much at that extent, to where if they find out that it's a girl, that they'll even abort the baby. It's, like, that bad. And if they have sons and daughters, they will most likely then not favor the son over the daughter. And, like, going back to what I was talking about, like, dowry, like, they will, if they have multiple sons, they're getting, and if they require a dowry before the groom marries the bride, they're tripling their money, and they're taking money away from, let's say, a poor family. And it, like, if you zoom out on that, that's still a bad Like, it's so bad. Like, if you're taking away money from a family that needs that money and you're just using that money for your property or something that's not as nothing's more necessary than food, water, and shelter above your head. So there are only bad things about dowry, and I can't come up with a good reason for dowry.
Yeah, I can't even think of a single good reason besides. It's not even a good reason besides the fact that men get money. Like, that's not even a good. It's not fair. If it was, even if it was like at least both sides getting money, that's different. But it's not even both sides getting money. It's literally just one.
Yeah. But if you think about it, like, you know what upsets me a lot? A lot of, like, every groom there is, they have a mother, right? And the mother is a woman, and a lot of times she is manipulated, and she is manipulated into the fact that, like, her money is going to her too. So it's always multiplying. Like, once that groom marries his wife, whatever, he is under the impression that they need to ask for a dowry when their offspring marries someone. So it's just like, that's the main reason it's like continuing even today. And like, so like, once that impression is under the child, if the girl grows up believing that she's worth nothing, she's only worth money, and she needs to be quote unquote bought to be married, someone will only marry her for money, it also brings up mental health issues, and it just keeps getting worse from there on out. And also, a lot of families, they will ask for more money if they're like disabled, and they have a set dowry amount, and they'll ask for more money on top of the amount that they already set, solely because she has a disability.
Yeah. And it also, like, in general, just lowers the status of women too, because by giving, it indirectly sets that standard, because when you're giving the money to men, you're kind of paying, essentially it's just a resemblance, like the meaning behind it's like you're giving money in exchange for, quote unquote, taking care of the wife, but you're basically just buying the wife essentially. And that just shows like how much value they give to women in India. And people, like many families, like not all families obviously, but in India, many families like try for children until they have a man, a boy, because they value boys over girls in like India.
In fact, I actually have a friend who had the same issue. Like, her family treats her worse than, like, they clearly, what I mean to say is they clearly favor her brother over her, and in so many ways. And it's like not even like in like indirect, it's like completely like obvious. And like, they don't even treat the daughter with respect, it's just very unfair that it still happens to this day. And I actually wanted to talk about like how like this generation is like trying to eradicate dowry. And my mother, like, she hates dowry, she's like, she got married without dowry, and she's always hated it. So she's always wanted, like, she's all up for gender equality and all that. So I think part of the reason that she's always encouraged me to have my own career is because of, like, part of the reason is because she knows about dowry, and she knows that if you teach your daughter to be independent and responsible and treat them without any discrimination, like, and don't encourage the practice of giving or taking dowry. Like, I feel like I think it's a mother's role to
No, not mother's role. I feel like it's parents' role.
Right. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That's what I was thinking of my mom, but yes, that's my dad. That's my dad too. But yes, it's definitely. It's it's definitely the parents' job to educate their daughter on this, and
And
treat
son.
them with respect and no discrimination, whether it's a boy or a girl. If you have one boy, one girl, I don't care, no discrimination, because my friend I was talking about, it's so clear that they clearly favor the boy over her, and I know exactly why. It's because in India, like we said before, it's way more favored to have a boy than a girl.
Yeah, like in the past, like dowries led to infanticide, and like I remember, like I was scrolling through an article the other day, and it said that for every 100 boys in India, there's 914 girls. But then when you like look,
Wait, repeat that. What'd you say?
So for every like 100 boys, there are 914 girls, because due to aborting babies, like infanticide. So, and because of that, like that doesn't seem okay. That's terrible. But then if you look at it in the millions and stuff, it's a huge number, and also it like causes women today in the workplace. Like a lot of women are not in these like leadership, like banking positions, because in history women have not been able to, like history with dowry and everything, they've not been able to learn about money and be in control of the money in the household. And even though I hate to say it, even in today's household, like whether the man earns more than the woman, and so the woman is considered so the man is considered like in control of the money, and like it's so like it's truly so sad. It's saddening because the women are not in control of the money, so they oftentimes feel inferior. And also, I was like watching this. My mom sent me a video on WhatsApp. It was like this. It was like a stepping thing. So for every time you agreed with the statement that was stated, you step forward. So it started off with like basic things like, oh, I know how to swim. I know how to read by the age 10. I was interested in something. And then after, like halfway through the video got more like it started bringing up like questions regarding their gender, and the questions were more related to money. Like, I know what an IRS means, I know what this bank thing means, I know what credit score is. It was like all these questions, and all the men by the end of that video were completely in front of that room, and the women were completely in the back, because the point of the video was like, if you agree with the statement, you come forward. If you disagree, you go back. So if they said that I know what this means, they would go front, and if they didn't, they would go back. And that was the point of the video, to show how women, like, they didn't have access to this information, and it truly made me so sad, because and it truly made me sad. I think my parents, I'm so glad my parents showed me that video, because it truly got me thinking. I like thought about it before going to bed that night, and I was thinking how I want to take on that responsibility when I'm older. Like in my family, like in my household, I want to have that responsibility. I don't want to have that. I want to be I want to have like half of that responsibility in the future.
Yeah, because even like educating your kids from a young age, like even I know like dowry has nothing to do with this, but like in like sometimes like my parents would be like, oh yeah, like washing the like or putting away the cleaning up the table is like a quote unquote girl's thing to do. Cleaning up the kitchen is a girl's thing to do. And I've tried to like explain to my parents like it doesn't matter. Like, we're living in the 21st century, both boys and girls have to do it. Because I always say like, why can't my brother do it, right? Like he's also as much like he's as capable as me, right? Why can't he clean it up? But they'd always like, well, my mom would always like, oh no, that's a girl's things to do, like, and it's so not fair. Obviously this has nothing to do with dowry, but like even educating stuff that men, like boys and girls, have to stay equal, and you have to teach that to your kids from a young age, because especially because like I'm just using this as an example, right? Like say my brother grows up with saying like, oh yeah, like I can be more superior than girls, like girls, they just have to like clean up stuff, that's what they're for. They're gonna grow up with that mindset, and it's gonna pass on. Like what's the point of like change them?
Yeah, so I have a sister, right? And so I don't know how that feels. Like I don't have a brother or like a brother too. I never felt like that. But I can totally understand how that could feel, because like which is why I feel like it's so important for your parents to make sure that you know where you how you stand as a woman, and you don't stand below a man solely because of the fact solely because of your gender. And parents really should. No, here's my thing. A parent should definitely take on that role, but after a certain point, it is the child's responsibility to understand it themselves too, because your parents are not going to be by you your whole life, and at a certain point you need to know what women are fighting for, and you need to understand where you need to fight too. And like dowry, like a lot of you need to speak up for those who can't, like people who are in these positions of dowry, and like women who are being like basically sold off, and child marriages and so many other things, and so much abuse that women are facing solely because their family doesn't want them to, don't want to pay the dowry, or in the way of property or whatever it might be. Like you need to speak up for the woman who can't. And I know it sounds like cringy or whatever, but it's so true. Like a lot of women are not able to speak up, and especially in these Asian countries, and which is why it's so important to speak up when you can.
Yeah, and I think we covered a lot of points about dowry. Like we covered about like a lot of the negative impacts, and I don't see any positives of this.
Yeah, there's literally not a single positive impact that comes to my mind.
It only profits the groom side because they are able to get money. But do you understand like the detriment it causes to like the woman itself? She's not able to she's not viewed, and she can't get respect from other people. She has to it's not fair. And we went over all of those negativity symbols.
And I think that's a good wrap for this week's episode.
Yeah, I feel like we covered a lot of things, and I hope you guys learned something today. So, bye.
Be sure to tune in for the next one.
Bye.
Bye.